Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. We got a special guest in the building today. I was just wondering, like, you got to tell him the story you told me earlier before we got on. That like he has this. I thought he had wood panels or vinyl that he put on how he built this wall. Tell the people about for people who get the visual experience. Tell them a little bit about this wall behind you that is just beautiful.
Okay, yeah, so that was the first thing he noticed when we jumped on. He's like, what is going on with that wall? So this wall right here, I actually, so I found a, so I found a door in the alley. It was off of a barn that was made in the 1800s. My neighbor said, and it was laying in the alley. I'm like, do you need that? And she's like, well, I mean, it's an old door. It's going to the garbage. It was huge. It was off a barn. I was like, well, I think I can use that. So I grabbed it and I made this wall out of it. It's a whole entire wall.
My man made a whole feature wall out of the barn door. So that's the brilliance and genius we dealing with today. Something he found in the alley turned into a feature. Looked like a $1 million home already.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to David Maurer. Man, I don't know why I had a hard time just pronouncing it. Give it to me one more time. So I don't want to mess it up. Look I'm having the trouble now.
Oh, you're good.
Help me out, brother.
It's Maurer.
Maurer. There you go.
Maurer. Yes.
Maurer.
That's right.
And he is from Green Zero Energy. And this is the next generation of mobile renewable energy. And he's like zero waste because he's taking barn doors out of alleyways, repurposing them. He's taking energy, repurposing them. It's just part of your everyday life, brother.
It actually really is.
Hey. So for the people who do not know who David is, who is David?
Well, so I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a husband, I'm a father. I have an 11-year-old son. Then I have an 8-year-old. So I have a daughter that's 8. Then I have a 4-year-old daughter. And we live in Dayton, Ohio, and I'm running a business out of Dayton, Ohio. And so I started as an entrepreneur probably about 11 years ago.
Wow.
And I started opening a company in Los Angeles, and then now I'm in Ohio. So, I mean, there's lots in there. There's lots of story involved in all that, but that's me in a nutshell.
And the beautiful thing I find beautiful about your story is that as an entrepreneur, you're a successful entrepreneur, and you've been able to do it. I remember when we first talked before we got on to this episode, when we talked about your stutter that you had, and I was like, wow, man, even with something that some people feel like would be a stopping block for them to move ahead, you were able to still like move forward, and create a successful business, create so many great relationships. Talk about how that journey has been for you, and what it means to you to get to where you were at, even despite the odds, right?
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say about that because I feel like I feel like the society that we live in now, they really move and push this agenda that like even moms and dads, like we look at our little ones and say, okay, what so do they have talents? Like what are they? What do you excel at? What do you do well? That's what you should do. And then we move them in that direction. But like with my family, I think because of my experiences, I've had very opposite experiences. Um, if I would have went and ran after what I do well, I sing, I'm a songwriter, I mix. That's what I love. That's what I do well. And when I do that, I don't stutter.
Mhm.
And you would have thought, well, why didn't you run after that? Because that wasn't actually what I was supposed to do. And
Mm.
it was a journey for me to learn what that was. And the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes it's your weakness that really allows you to see who you really
Mm.
are, and reveal who you really are, and actually show you what you're supposed to do. And for me,
Mhm.
I would have run away from having to do a podcast or doing or owning a business and having to be on the phone and in meetings in front of a board and doing all those things because it is so difficult. And knowing that it's not going to go away. I mean, right now I'm
Mm.
doing well, but this is not how it normally goes, like for me. So I know it's never going to leave. So I have to like walk up against this obstacle over and over and over again. And what I found is um, actually there was a customer that I had. I'll just mention this when I was in Los Angeles building
Uh-huh.
rockets. Um, um, we were making like maybe 7 rockets a year. We were launching up to making 100 rockets a year. We were expanding really big, and then the virus hit and we went under. But at the beginning, when I first met the customer, I know um, I hadn't won the contract yet. So I was up against a few other organizations that wanted the contract for building this rocket, and I was nervous, because I'm thinking first impression is lasting impression, right? So
Mhm.
you want to be on your game, and I'm that's not an industry that we're normally in. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I'm walking in here, I have to do more than what they do. And so
Mm.
I'm thinking, all right, so what's he gonna do if I'm stuttering? If I walk in and I'm stuttering, he's gonna think, oh, he's nervous. He doesn't know what to say. That's what a lot of times happens. There's these assumptions that they make
Mhm.
about you. You're nervous, and
Mhm.
I'm not at all. Like I rarely ever get nervous, honestly. And
Mhm.
so I walk in there, and he asked me to. He walked in the room, and I'm nervous because this guy is very well known, and
Mhm.
he came up to shake my hand and introduced himself, and then I went to introduce myself, and it took me about a minute and a half to say my name. And
Mm.
he looked confused. He was like, "What's going on?" You know what I mean? Because I'm over here like,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to say my name. I finally got my
Mhm.
name out, and then he's like, "Okay." Then he sat down really slow at the table, and everybody's like looking around. I'm like, "Okay, I done messed up. I'm not getting
Mhm.
this." Like,
Mhm.
and so he started asking me, he's like, so what do you do? What I need to know more about you. Like, so I started attempting to explain, could barely get any words out. And I'm like, I failed. I was feeling terrible. And he stopped
Mhm.
me. I kept apologizing. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm I'm sorry I have a stutter. He's like, listen. He's like, I want to tell you something. He said, you've had me for 30 minutes on the edge of my seat. He said, now that's hard to do. He's like, I'm telling you,
Mhm.
because normally you got about maybe 45 seconds with me. And if you don't get it out, you done lost me and I'm sending you somewhere
Mhm.
else. He's like,
Mhm.
so you've had me for 30 minutes on the edge of my seat. He said, because I know that whatever you're going to say is important if you get it out.
Mhm.
He's like, so he said, I think you need to look at it maybe in a different way.
Mhm.
And when he said that, he was like, he said, he said one more thing that I never forgot.
Mhm.
He said, he said at the end of it, I remember he said, I was like, well, I hope I didn't mess this up. And he said, no, actually, you're getting the contract. And I was like,
Mm.
what? And he said, because there's there's something about you that I see that I don't see in a lot of people is that you're not able to hide under um, words and fluency.
Mhm.
So like there's other individuals who've memorized this, speech. They come in here and they know what to say and they say it all just right and they impress me. He's like, you're not here to impress me like that. He's like, you just walk in and you just are who you are.
Mhm.
And that really opened my eyes to myself is that, look, even though I saw this as a handicap. I
Mhm.
saw it as an obstacle, a thing um, that literally feels like a wall. It
Mhm.
actually moved me up to the front. And even when you go to the store,
Mhm.
look at like where the handicap spots are, like they're at the front. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I feel like for me, it it allowed it makes me have to be me.
Yeah.
And so that ever since then, I think it really opened my eyes, and I started actually embracing it and saying, you know what,
Mhm.
like now I see that I just won a contract because of me, not
Mhm.
because of like, oh, that's interesting or I can see potential. He It was because of me.
Mhm.
And a- and he saw the value in me. I saw the value after that, and I think that that opened my eyes. And even with my little ones, like my family, like I I don't encourage them only to run after the things that they do good. I I want them where they embrace themselves, like who you are. That's the most important thing. And who you are is
Mhm.
not that you know how to do backflips off a fence or whatever. Like it's it's who you are. Even your weakness, like your weakness may be the thing that reaches the world.
Yeah.
It may be because of your weakness that you're able, in the experiences that you have, that you're able to actually reach more and actually be a help. And so for
Yeah.
me, um, it's it, I mean, I have had my days, I'm not gonna lie, like I've had my days that were extremely frustrating where I get on the phone to make a simple phone call and they say, may I have your information, may I have your name and address? I can't say it, and they end up hanging up on me. They're like, hello, 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 hello. They start getting frustrated. I'm like, wow. They just hang up.
Mhm.
And things like that. Being in meetings like where I get misunderstood. I had one person, he thought I was having a seizure. He ran up and
Oh,
grabbed me.
no.
So like, I mean, it gets real, it gets embarrassing. I have times where
Yeah.
afterwards I'm just sitting down like, I don't know if I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, here I am. And I can't stop. I got to keep going forward.
Man, and, because I've started my entrepreneur journey probably like what 5 years ago, and then I remember when I was talking to you, like I was re-inspired. I was like, man, like there was so many times I felt like a failure, or felt like I couldn't do something. But when I heard how you turn, those challenging times into triumphant times, changing those challenging times into opportunities, and how you've overcome and or faced them head on to turn that weakness into a perceivable strength. It gave me a new revigoration and hope, and a different outlook. And so like I was so appreciative of our first conversation we had, that really re re-inspired me all over again in so many different ways. And I I this game of entrepreneurship, there's like so many, there's some ups and downs, some highs and lows. There's like different things that we learn along the way, because there's different like uh I don't want to say secrets, but like innuendos that you learn as you go along the way, and some of them you learn from failure.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know, because your entrepreneurship journey has just been amazing. What is one of those less than optimal situations that you have faced as an entrepreneur, and how did you face it?
So I think um, I'll mention a couple things here because I think these things I'm going to mention here are maybe happen a lot with entrepreneurs when they first get started. But
Mm.
one of the biggest lessons I learned right away is um, how to leverage my excitement. Because a lot
Mm.
of times you get excited, you're excited about what you're doing, you have a vision. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to have some kind of vision. I'm not saying maybe you're a visionary, like long-term visionary. Some people are more here and now, and then they hire other visionaries to work with them. But for me, I'm a very long-term visionary. So I start
Mhm.
at the end. I go all the way to the end, and then I work backwards. So
Mhm.
that's how I figure out where I'm going to go. As I go to where I want to be, and then I go back. Okay, so who do I have to meet to do that? And then I start working backwards. And then I make those introductions, and I get to there. Who do I need to bring on the team? All that. But one of the common mistakes that I see in something that I did is not knowing what to start with. Everybody thinks like, oh, I need to make a logo. I need to get a business card. I need to get it out there. I need to show everybody like my stuff. Like, look at this. Like I made this. And for me, like, that's what I did. Like
Yeah.
the first thing I did is made a business card
Uh-huh.
and made a logo and did all that stuff. And
Uh-huh.
then I was like, wait. And I started realizing I was working backwards sort of. Because then I ended
Mm.
up having to go back and change the logo. And then I had to go back and change the name because I just wasn't ready for that. And so there was a lot of things that I did in reverse and backwards, and how to fix that. This is huge, and I'm happy to be able to share this, and I hope that there's other entrepreneurs or individuals that later one day want to start a business or make some. There are
Mhm.
so many resources available. Like I wish
Mhm.
you guys knew. What you need to do is get on your computer
Mhm.
and look up your local accelerators. So look up a
Mhm.
local accelerator, a local incubator in your area, and there is many resources available that helps you walk through all the way from the beginning, from your initial idea
Mhm.
to making a product, understanding who your market is, understanding um, how do you narrow everything down and get to the point where you can launch your business. And
Yeah.
they walk you through it. And I wish so bad I would have known. I had no clue.
Yeah.
There's money that the city actually sets aside to go and stimulate the local economy, and they set that money aside. You don't have to. It's not a loan, nothing. Like, they help you. I've gotten so
Mhm.
much help and money now that I know. I mean, years later after I started, I wish I'd have known this before. But you guys
Mhm.
that are new entrepreneurs, you need to get hooked up with your local resources in your city, local accelerator. Look them up. Look up the accelerators that are there. Find one that's in your niche. And I'm telling you, there is so much resource. They link you with the local universities. They give you help. I have gotten much help from the ones that are here local, and I highly encourage you guys to do that because they'll help you get your stuff in the right order, and you will have years of a head start over me. So that's like a major. I wish I could. I wish I could emphasize how important that is.
Yeah.
Um,
Now it's
even for networking, it's huge. They make introductions for you. Like, that's big. You can't always go knocking on doors. Sometimes you need a person to introduce you to somebody. I mean, that's how I
Mhm.
met you.
Yeah.
I got introduced, and I would have never met you if it wasn't for that. So that's huge, you guys. So look that up. If you want to start a business, if you want to do something, look that up. Look up your local resources and get hooked up, because they'll run like run like um they have like programs and stuff you can get in, and they'll have um they run them like every month. They'll have one about marketing, one about this, and they'll get you in there.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say the other thing that I think is one of the biggest mistakes that I made, that I learned from, even recently,
Uh-huh.
is um, when you have a partner. in your business. Um, and I think that really, um, I would say, in your excitement, for starting your business, you share it with others. You share things with them like, hey, look what I want to do. Some people get interested for different reasons. Some people think you're amazing. Some people um, see something for themselves.
Mhm.
Others just want to help you. And I think when you go and you decide on a partner that you're going to work with, if you're going to work with a partner, it is a very important decision because I have learned that you don't find out who they really are until you start getting money involved. And the people that
Mm.
you end up working with, they're all good, they're with you, they're going with you until you ask, hey, look, if you're going to be a director or you're going to be a partner in the business, you're going to do this, I need you to do this. I need you to give
Mhm.
this amount of money because we have these expenses and I need you to give this much. Then you
Mhm.
start you start finding out who's who. And
Mhm.
um, having your legal work in place in advance is very important. I've received some mixed advice on that. I've had some people say, "Oh, don't jump in and spend a bunch of money on legal work ahead of time," and but I'm really glad that I did because it kept things from getting messy.
Mhm.
Um, so I really really advise you to have mentors
Mhm.
that help you. Even assessing a person doesn't matter how long you've known them. What you need to assess this individual and their relationship with you and the business, and that they understand what their responsibility and roles are. I had one
Mhm.
individual that um, I started working with, and we were going to be in a partnership until I realized that he didn't want to do anything. He literally
Wow.
thought he was gonna he was just gonna give ideas,
Mhm.
and he's like, I'm just gonna let you do all the work. I'm like, I wish you'd have said this earlier because that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's just you have to iron out that stuff at the beginning. You have to be open. You have to be with each other. And if you feel that that's not the case, it's like a marriage. You inherit
Yeah.
all their bad habits. You inherit everything. Their
Mhm.
their relationships, like their families, like you get very involved with
Mhm.
that individual, and so um, um, you have to be aware of that stuff. Don't. I had this one guy, so I'll never forget this. I met with this older man. He was a multimillionaire, and
Mhm.
he was 80 years old, and
Mhm.
I had a chance to sit down with him, and he was sitting down and sharing with me his experiences and mistakes that he's made, and how he. There was one thing that he said that I will never forget, and I'm gonna share that with you guys. Um,
Yeah.
he told me he said never never ignore the thing that you don't want to look at. So you
Mm.
always have in your mind, like, in your excitement, you want everything to work out. It's just natural. You don't want there to be this like, what about that? That's gonna be a showstopper, or
Mhm.
whatever. You don't want a showstopper. You want the whole thing to work and flow and move forward. But he told me, he said, when you're looking at things, you need to look at everything. Look at everything. Don't ignore this, don't ignore that. Don't ignore the thing that you're like, I don't want to look at that. So he told me that how he learned that for himself, and that became a motto of his, is he did that. He was a multi millionaire, and the richest man in this whole area, and he ended up losing everything, and he was in debt, I think, a couple $1 million.
Oh,
because
wow.
of something that he ignored. He said, now it took me years. He said, but I was able to get all that money back. And he said, at my age now, I'm still a multimillionaire.
Yeah,
He said, yet he said the valuable lesson I learned from that was never ignore the thing that you don't want to look at, because he said later it will it will come back and bite you.
yeah.
So I learned from that. I really appreciate that, and I have I would say that's one of the biggest lessons that I have learned, and I'm glad that I was able to learn that from him, even though I still had to kind of learn it myself too. I was able to hear him say that, and at least it was ringing. It was ringing in my
Yeah.
head.
I think all of us have to learn that lesson from time to time, not even just with entrepreneurship. I think I was just having a conversation with somebody about founders' health and wellness. What earlier today or was it earlier today or was it yesterday? And they were ignoring certain things of their health because they were trying to accomplish certain things in their business, and then because they ignored it, it caught up to them and it cost them
Mhm.
money, it cost them like time, it cost them a lot of different things. So that's a very, very, very valuable lesson. So I'm glad you were able to share that with us and the listeners today. And I agree, mentorship, resources, there's a bunch of resources out there. I didn't even know there was this big ecosystem until I got further into it and I started
Mhm.
networking and helping out in other entities to bring DEI and to the entrepreneurial ecosystem startup space. And I was like, oh, there's money for this, there's money for that. Like, wow.
Mhm.
So for everybody who's listening, if you want to get tapped into the local resources in your area, visit S America's ssbdc.org. That's the one of the websites I know that can kind of get you started on that journey of looking at what all the resources are at in your particular region. If you're in the U.S. area, where you can start to learn more about those incubators, those resources, those grants, or those funding that's out there that you don't even have to pay back
Mhm.
if you only knew how to apply for them, right? So thank
Right.
you for sharing that. You know what I'm curious about too, as I'm talking to you, because you were talking about that incubators, talking about the starting the cards up, and I know, is this your second or third startup? I can't remember.
So
The
actually, uh,
He said, actually, there's more that you don't know.
yeah, so I've actually opened up
Eight?
eight
Wow. So
is eight
how do you
companies.
how do you come up with your idea for a business? How do you do it?
I'm really glad you asked me that, because so my wife knows this, but not a lot of people know this, but um, I actually get a lot of stuff in my sleep. So
Really?
yeah, no, really, I'll get ideas, and I also get, um, if I have a problem, I need a solution, like a major issue, I will get the answer in my sleep, and I'll wake up, and in my sleep, I will live out the whole entire thing of what the issue is, and then what needs to happen, and I'll get the solution. And I've actually used those in my company, and actually gone and fixed major problems. I've actually gotten ideas in my sleep, and I wake up and I write them down, and then so that's not where I get all of them, but I do get a lot of them in my sleep, and I wake up. I think it's because my mind is moving a lot. But for me as an entrepreneur, you have some entrepreneurs that are just like very very innovative, and they just like they just have ideas. Maybe it's not needed, but it's just an
Mhm.
idea. So I get those, but honestly, I ignore most of those. Um, and I probably get, I mean, many every day. I write down some of them, but me, um, me being raised the way I was
Mhm.
raised by a single mom. Um, we didn't have much. Like, we lived in the hood.
Yeah.
I didn't have much, so I had to learn how to use what I had. and 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 I think that um, really really made me into a problem solver. Like I specifically remember one time my mom, uh, she we had a leak in the pipes in the basement.
Yeah.
It actually wasn't the basement. It was this was actually a crawl space. And so my mom was like, "Hey, DJ, there's a leak in the pipes." I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "I need you to go down there and fix it." She's like, "You're the man in this house. Like, you got to go down there and
Uh-huh.
fix it." I was like, "Mom," she's like, "You got to go down there." I was like, "I don't even know how." She's like, "I know. You got to fix it." So I was like, "All right." So I got my little headlamp, got under there. I was like looking, I could see water spraying out, and I was like, okay, this is nasty. It's like a bunch of spider webs and like holes. I'm like, how do I know some kind of animal's not going to come out and eat? And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, all right, well, I have never done this before, but I got figured out. So I just went over there, started looking at it, went and found some stuff in the other room. I like wrapped some stuff, like I rigged it up and figured out, and I actually fixed it. I got it to
Uh-huh.
stop, and then we went to the store, got some stuff, and then I fixed it. And
Uh-huh.
in that, I'm using that as an example to kind of show you like how that
Uh-huh.
started to mold my mind and kind of form my mind to use what I had and not always have every like where you have or you have like a kit or something in front of you, like you got all the pieces. Like
Mhm.
I didn't even have one piece, and I'm like, all right, so what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that really has made me a problem solver, I would say, and I
Uh-huh.
actually enjoy it. It's not just like, oh, I gotta solve another problem.
Yeah.
When I see problems, like I'm attracted. Like I'm like, okay, um, I got an idea, and so I start
Right.
like making a solution, and that's really where the company that I have now actually started is I saw a problem, and I was
Uh-huh.
actually I sat down with a coworker, and we saw the same problem, and we were sitting down talking about like, well, what if we did this, or what if you did this, and like, and and he was also an inventor and had a lot of really good ideas. And I would say that that is what has made me into an entrepreneur, or
Mhm.
realize what I had is the ability to actually see a problem and have a solution, come up with those ideas, and then actually make something. Some people like to sit and talk about it like, oh, you could do this and you could do that. I'm like, okay, so yes, I could, and I'm about to go make something and see
Mhm.
like how this thing works. And that is, I think, the kind of entrepreneur I am. Like
Right.
I get ideas, and then I want to go make it, test it, and I want to make a solution. Um, um, yes, I do have things that are not needed, just good
Mhm.
ideas. They're just not needed. But most of my ideas, I think, are an answer to a problem. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that is a necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Um, you know, I, I'm sometimes my ideas, I wish they came a dime a dozen like yours. I'm gonna have to start practicing this. I'm gonna start getting in crawl spaces and like anytime someone instead of calling the plumber so I can start exercising my mind and think of ideas like this. Maybe I
Right.
need more sleep. I need this nap ministry so ideas could come to me because I was like, all right, I didn't take I'm not sleeping like I don't sleep enough to get through the whole dream. Yeah,
Right.
my mind going in many different directions right now, but most of my ideas come from when I do like reading or like go on to other podcasts to learn about what other people are doing. Do you what's your I don't know if you have an all-time favorite book, but what if you have one, what's your all-time favorite business book or book that inspires you that kind of gives you ideas or
So actually, I don't. I don't really have one. I have um, read some books, but most of the stuff that I read is when I'm looking into an issue. So like more of
Mm,
the mechanical side of things, like how do I make this? There's a
mm,
lot of inspirational stuff out there, um,
mm,
a lot of advice, and I probably should read more than what I do. But I find myself actually hopping into like the experience, because I have
mm,
this I have this I have a definition that I made up for the word wisdom, and
mm.
maybe it's not original, but it's something that I have learned over the years. But I say this a lot, that wisdom wisdom is a combination of of not of knowledge and experience.
Mm,
So once you mix knowledge and experience, then you start having wisdom. And for me, I've seen a lot of people who just read lots of books and listen to everybody else's ideas and successes, and yet themselves, they don't move. It's almost like inspiration overload makes
mm,
you freeze and paralyzed, because you feel like, well, what can I do? And you have all these ideas, but then like you don't know where to start, what to do with it. And so for
yeah.
me, I've seen that and I've experienced that, and especially in the age we live in now, with all of the social media, and everybody's got a wise word, and like, you should do this and you should do this and blah. Everybody's got something to say, but for me, I'm like, I just want to go do it. Like,
That,
I'm just gonna go do it. So when I'm reading stuff, like I'm reading stuff about what I'm doing. That's mostly
mm,
what I do, and I do think that I should read more inspirational things. I should, because I'm very easily inspired. So if I see, I'm like, ooh, then I'll start writing a book. That's
that.
that's how I am, and I actually am working on a couple of books right now.
Nice. I can't
But
wait to see those. I'm gonna grab them soon as they hit the shelves. Trust me.
so
But
actually,
no,
I have one book that I'm working on of how to open a business with no money. And
what is that
the
even
name
possible?
yeah, the name of the book is It Starts With You, and it's about um, the value of your reputation.
Mm,
So explain it. Some people don't see like, they think, oh, I need money, I need a loan, I need funding, I need funding. That's how I'm going to start. But once you see the value of your reputation, um, then you realize that it's worth more than what you thought, and you can actually
mm,
start very early on with that reputation, building value to that. I'll give you one example. Let's say you um, are going to do a startup, and you're going to need um, maybe a facility. You're going to need a truck. You're going to need a trailer, and you're going to need a forklift. I'm going to say those things.
mm,
Well, all of those things can be very expensive. I mean, a facility in California, a small facility, you could be $6,000-7,000 a month just for a little dinky little facility. You might have, for a vehicle, I mean, another $600 or $700 a month. Um, for a forklift, I mean, if you got to lease that, or if you got to buy one, I mean, so for things like that, it could be expensive. So if you actually have a monetary value on that, you know what that is, right? Let's
mm,
say that you're going to start up, and you say, hey, look, I don't have the money right now, but I need to start the stuff I know I need to do. I have what it takes to do this. Your
mm,
reputation may allow maybe an individual who knows you say, look, hey, I tell you what, I'm going to refer you here. I got a friend who owns a warehouse down the street, and I know he's got some extra space in there. I'm going to refer you to him, because I
mm,
know you, and I know that you're not going to let me down, because this is my referral, which reflects on me. So don't mess it
mm.
up. And
Man.
so this individual may refer you, you may get in a conversation with this guy who says, you know what? I got some extra space. I have an extra vehicle we're not really using right now. And we have a forklift here on site. Why don't you just use the space? Um, Once you start making revenue, then you can start making payments.
Mhm,
There you go. You literally just went and saved this much money because of your reputation. So your reputation in that actual situation had a monetary value
mm,
that actually allowed you to have your startup with no money. And and I've experienced that myself. So allowing the younger millennials and
mhm,
generation Z, and all of them to understand the importance of your reputation. I'm in management, so I have individuals that are younger that walk into work and they're on their phones and walking around, and you ask them to do something and they're like, all right, and they half do it. And I've actually sat them down and said, hey, look, listen, I don't know if you understand the value of your reputation, but you got to remember, like everywhere you go with you.
mhm,
And um, if you want to stand out, like
mhm,
you have to go above and beyond.
mhm,
A- And that's how you build your reputation. But I feel like a lot of individuals look at it like, well, I only make this much money, and they're not even they don't realize the value of their reputation. And I actually went and I interviewed different individuals and entrepreneurs, individuals that own these organizations. I say, what made you stand out? Like,
mhm,
how did you become a supervisor? How did you become a manager? How did you become a business owner? What made you stand out from the rest?
mhm,
And it was so interesting because they always, like everybody else, would be at the computers, sitting down, and he would stand up. Or
mhm,
everybody would be on their phones and he was working.
mhm.
And another manager would notice that, you know what I'm saying? And so I think there is very much of a value in that. And so that's one of the books that I'm writing about, that because I really want to influence youth to realize like what you already have. Everybody wants like what they don't have. And,
Yeah,
and now that I'm saying this, I think it in my mind it circles right back to what I was explaining to you. I didn't have anything, or
yeah,
I thought I didn't, right?
yeah,
But I think that we have more than what we realize. That's already in our hands.
yeah,
You have a reputation that you can make and build without having any money. Literally
yeah,
just on like how you hold yourself and how you act, and the importance of like walking in and being respectful, and
mhm,
and and having good manners and looking sharp, like having your hair lined up. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I mean, it makes a difference. That impression makes a difference. Like looking nice,
yeah,
smelling nice, like having manners.
yeah. Like I think I've had several conversations with younger generations about this, in the form of brand, right? Branding. Like everybody has the ability to build their own personal professional brand. And that's why you have influencers now. That's why you have people who seek to have certain people in their company because their brand symbolizes and has a reputation to it. And if they can partner with or have that person in their organization, it helps to amplify the brand of that organization, right? And so you can leverage that, but you have to have a good brand, or
Mm.
whatever, or have to have the brand, whatever you want your brand to be, that could be leveraged to your to whether whatever it is you want to do, to start a business or to get into that next conference or to speak at that place. You are in control of that, and that has value, and it has significant value. And so I'm loving the way that you broke that down. Thank you for taking the time to explain that to us. Um, If you could meet any entrepreneur, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, yes. So I have a list of 5 of them. So do you
5
want to
of
know
them?
like
Okay.
you want to know my top one or what?
Yeah, yeah. Give me your top 5. Give me your top 5. Since you got
Okay,
5
all
of them,
right.
go ahead. Go ahead. Give me your top
All right,
5.
good. So I would say and I have reasons for each one of them that I want to meet. But
Okay.
my number one I think would be Shaq. Um
Shaq owns so many things now. I can't even keep in track.
yeah, I feel like he has a very solid entrepreneurial mind, and he's had many experiences, all the way from when he first started making a lot of money to like how to handle that, and then like moving from the NBA into business, and looking at what he does now. I would love to pick his mind and hear his advice. So I think he's maybe he's very high on my list of individuals that I will meet. Like, so these individuals, I'm gonna meet them, and I actually already have a connection that may be introducing me to him. So I'm not sure why I can't hear you now. Do you hear me okay?
Hold on, testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. I
I
was gonna
got you. I
say,
got you.
Shaq Diesel, if you listening, let's have a meeting, and then make sure after you meet with him, make sure you send them to my podcast, good sir.
No, absolutely, absolutely, yes. So I would say he's very high on my list. Um, I would say ne- next on my list. So there's 2 individuals I'm going to list I actually met with over video, but I want to meet with them in person. I'm like, I appreciate the video call, the one-on-one video call, but I want to meet with them in person. But um, his name's a little bit hard for me to say, but he's from Shark Tank. Um, he owns
Damon?
Fubu, yes. So I
Yeah.
so I actually I met with him one-on-one on a video on a call, and that was actually very interesting because it took me like maybe a minute and a half to say my name on that one too. And he told me, he said, "We can shut the video off if you want, like if that makes you feel more comfortable." I was like, "No, no, keep it on." I was like, "I'm gonna figure this out." And so anyway, I was actually asking him. I was like, what do I do um, when I'm raising funding? I was like, I'm going in front of individuals like yourself. You're looking at how I'm saying it. Do I have my facts together? Like how I'm saying what I'm saying, like how I'm looking at you and all this. I was like, so what if I get up there and can't say one word? Does that mean I'm not worth the funding?
Mhm.
But I know what to say. I have it all. God made it. I designed it, but I can't get the funding. And he was like, wow, that he said, to be honest with you, he said, I don't have an answer for that. He said that's a very hard thing to have to deal. He said, but I do have an answer. He said, because you owned a company making rockets and you did this and you did that. He was like,
Mhm.
so I can tell you're gonna figure it out. He said, you're gonna figure out a way because you made a way to where you are now. He's like, so you're gonna figure out how to do that. So that was so inspiring for me. But I do want to meet him in person at some point, and I will. Um, uh, I would say next would be the CEO of of um, of of if I can say the name of the company, um,
Go ahead. Say the name of the company.
of jet it. His name is uh, Mr. Gonzalez. His hard name his first name's hard for me to say because of my stutter, but um, he's a brother. He's in aviation, obviously. He owns a company that leases out um, luxury jets, Honda jets. Um,
Nice.
and he's one of the larger ones in the US. And he's increasing. He's in the news a lot right now. And he's a friend of mine. We talk, and he's actually the one. He sent me a selfie of him and Shaq the other day, and I'm like, oh, come on. So um, he's very inspirational for me because me being in aviation, I know that it's very much there's not a lot of us in the aviation field, and
Yeah.
it's very much a niche field, and for you to get in there, you have to know somebody, and they got to let you in. And
Yeah.
looking at what he's actually done in that industry is so inspiring to me because nobody else has actually done what he's done. Like he's the only one that I know of who's gotten
Mm.
to his level in that industry. And so I want to hear some of the stories that he's done because I know for myself, I've been in aviation for like 11 years now, and I opened up a business in aviation, a repair station, and I worked on aircraft. So I know what it takes. Like I- I've gone to, I walked in a convention one time. It was like a dinner at this luxury airport in Los Angeles, and I was like the only uh, the only one there.
Yeah.
And I came to the front, like, they'll have a person like at the door, like, they're like, may I help you? And I was like, oh, I'm here and they're like, oh, well, we already have a janitor. I'm like,
Wow.
excuse me? No, I'm here for the convention. Oh, well, do you have an invite? Yes, I'm a CEO of an aviation company. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I get it. So I know that he's experienced things, and
Hmm.
seeing what he's accomplished and the people that he has learned to work with is just impressive to me. It's amazing, and I want to meet him in person, and we actually have a plan to meet up. It's just
Nice.
he's way out east. So
Yeah. Shout out to Glenn Gonzalez from Jettit.
yes, thank you.
He's another person I'm hoping to get onto this podcast. I know you introduced me to him through LinkedIn, so like I'm crossing my fingers I get the chance to interview him one day.
Yeah, yes, that's him.
Your top
Thank
five
you.
might be my top five too now.
I appreciate you saying his name for me too. I wanted to make sure that got out. Um, I was, let's see, is that number three?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say number four would be Elon Musk. Um,
Yeah.
he's a very innovative individual. He's had a lot of accomplishments. He's very smart. I can't say that um, there's a lot of things he does that I don't agree with, but as an individual, I definitely would love to um, learn from him.
Mhm.
So he's
And I think
on
he's
my list.
neurodiverse too, isn't he? Doesn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I definitely would like to meet him. And then um, number five um, is um, Jeff
Bezos.
Bezos. Yes. I definitely want to meet him because he has some very interesting ideas and values about entrepreneurship and businesses. And um, actually, one of the things that he said that really was inspirational for me. My my previous um, customer, his name's Marcus Roofer.
Mhm.
He owns a company that makes rockets that go to space. They're actually making the rocket that's launching the rover onto the moon right now for NASA and for SpaceX.
Mhm.
So his organization's making that rocket right now.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but he had a meeting um, with Mr. Bezos, and he told me that he did some work with him before. And one thing he explained to him, he said with businesses, he said you have to know. He said you have to know. He said in order for you to have new life, there has to be a death. And
Mm.
he likened it to natural things, even a seed, and
Mhm.
how the process works of new life. Like there has to be a death, and even really in a spiritual manner as well. Like a lot of things in life, like in order to have that new life, there has to be a death. And he talks about how with his organizations, he was able to know when to kill the business
Mhm.
or the branch or whatever. When everybody else is like, "Why'd you do that? We were doing our best right now. We were hitting our highest numbers." And you say, "Exactly." So
Mhm.
he knew when to say this one's done, we're stopping, and we're starting this. And
Mhm.
that is really, he said that's the recipe for his success. And so I want to learn more about that because that is one of those wise things. That's a combination of knowledge and experience. That knowledge is not just going to get you. You're going to have some experience with that in order to understand how that really works. So
Mhm.
I think he's got some wisdom that I would like to
Mhm.
learn from. So that's my top
Yeah.
five. I know you just
That's
asked
a
for
good
one,
top
but
5. I that's a good top 5. I don't know how you even start to compete with that top 5 in, what order, but
yeah,
that's a good top 5. That's a solid.
thank you.
Speaking of new life, one thing I like to do on this podcast, because sometimes we get the just graduated college crowd, high school students who get inspired by the journeys of people that look like them. Um, and one thing that I noticed when I used to talk to like college students, they think as soon as they get that degree or they graduate from that entrepreneurship program that it's just supposed to happen. Everything is supposed to happen the way in their mind that they come up with the plan, the business takes off, or they start working at this company and they're supposed to get this big check because they finished their degree, but they don't have the wisdom, as we would say, yet. So they have to go through some things, and so sometimes the first job is not the most glamorous job. So with all that being said, I want to know, what was your first job?
So my first, um, right out of high school, is I went and I did construction. So I did
All right.
heavy construction, um, laying foundations
Mhm.
for silos and wall, walls and concrete. It was like heavy construction, concrete work.
Mm.
And I would highly recommend that. I know it may sound interesting to some people, but I highly recommend very intensive labor work as your first job because I learned so much that made me into the person I am right now because of the intensity of that work. It I learned how to be a hard worker. I learned how I learned how to be the hardest worker on the job, and I was the youngest one on the job, but I was the hardest worker on the job because um, it was a while before I got acclimated. But once you start waking up, 4 in the morning and working all day
Mhm.
uh, until late dark, 9 o'clock. Like I have my days that I work long days like that, and you're like exhausted. Like I still remember, I still remember that. this one day we had this race because
Mhm.
we'd ripped the forms off the concrete,
Yeah.
and the forms weigh like 80 a piece, pounds a piece, uh, without any extra stuff on it. But you get the concrete on it, and it gets heavier, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we had all of them laying down inside of a pit, and it was maybe 400 feet long
Uh-huh.
on both sides. And so we had already ripped them off the walls, and they were like leaning on the side of the dirt. And so my friend was on the other side, I was on this side, and I was like, let's race and see who can get to the end first. I'll
Yeah.
get this side. So you got to lift them up out of the hole. You got to lean all the way down, lift them out of the hole, and stack them on the side, right? So I said, ready,
Uh-huh.
ready, set, go. We raced all the way down. I won. But
Uh-huh.
um, at the end, I remember I went home, and my arms right here had like red, red stretch marks on them,
Dust?
like where my muscles got so big. Like
Oh,
literally, like
wow.
I worked that hard that like my muscles were huge and swole just from that one day. And I still
Wow.
got the marks on my arms from that. So like
Wow.
those those experiences helped me when I went into the world of management or the world. I, I was always the manager, supervisor that I'd go out and do it and actually show them
Mhm.
how to do it. And not the person like, can you guys go over here? And I'm sitting at a computer like this. That's not me. I do my computer
Mhm.
work and I'm like, okay, hey, let me show you how to do this. So leading by example, and I think that's where I learned the value of hard work. That was my first job.
Okay. That's beautiful. I love that. Love that. And it pays off. Even if your first job is Mickey D's or something, there's things that you can learn from each and every first job that you can take along with you that helps you build for the next thing in life. So thank you for sharing that. So when you there's gonna be somebody who's inspired by your story who's like, man, now I want to look into going into the aviation field or going into the green energy space or whatever it is because they've heard your story, or setting up something in entrepreneurship. What would you give as some advice to someone who's looking to start a career in one of the industries you've been in, or to go on the journey that you've been on?
Well, I would say networking is huge, especially um, working in aviation. If I had not networked and done my research, there's many opportunities that I wouldn't have had. Because many times it doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know, especially in
Mm,
aviation, and in the renewable space as well. But um, when you're having a conversation, when you start mentioning names, you wake them up. It's like, oh, you know them? Like, yeah.
mm,
And then you start like, so I had a lot of times where I literally had to do my research. I had to know who was in the area. Like when I moved out there to LA,
mhm,
I didn't know anybody out there. So I had to
mhm,
do my research and and I networked at the point where it didn't matter who I talked to out there. Like I knew somebody they knew. I was like, oh, you know
mhm,
him? Like, yeah, we used to work. I was like, oh yeah. So like, and then that's where you start making connections, and they're like, and then they go talk to him about you, reputation circle,
mhm,
So I think knowing um, networking, knowing who's in the industry, um, meeting individuals, and not not necessarily just like looking for a job. I think some people get in this habit of like nowadays it's like look for where the money's at, look for a job, like um, work there, then just wait till something else. You have to like actually mingle. You got to mingle with the industry. You kind of have to, um, if you really want to dominate the industry, you almost have to be an enthusiast and not just like, well, that's my job and just go home.
mhm.
Like you gotta get into it. It's
Mhm.
not only just money. Like if you're gonna have any influence or have any say, you're gonna have to get into that industry that you're working in. Even if you're like, well, this is not what I want to do forever, so I don't want to waste my time. No, it's reputation, it's networking. That's gonna stay with you forever. You got to get
Mhm.
into what you're doing. Don't just work your job and be on your phone, sitting there just like waiting to go home. Like actually dig into it. Like you be the one, if you're in aviation, you be the one who's asking your boss if you can make copies of the manuals or like this
Mm.
certain section. Like I want to learn about the pneumatic system or the hydraulic system on this airplane. Like I
Mhm.
don't understand it. Like I got in there, was messing with it, and I don't understand it. Like I want to learn. So you ask him for copies, and he's like, wow, you're gonna read it at work or take? No, I'm taking it home. I'm gonna read this at
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
And, and nowadays, a lot of them don't want to do that. Like, no, I gotta be on the clock. No, but this is you. Like, this is your knowledge that like you're gonna use and advance yourself. Do it at
Mhm.
home. Like, do it whenever you can. Lay the phone down for a minute.
Mhm.
Read. And so, I would say that's like the biggest thing that I think would help is just make sure you're always networking, always meeting, not afraid to introduce yourself. Look, let me tell y'all something, okay? If I can walk up and introduce myself, knowing that I can't even say my name,
Mhm.
you can definitely do it.
Yeah.
You can walk up. It don't matter what race they are. I don't care what you think they think about you. Listen, I walked up to people that I knew were not going to be accepting of me, and I
Mhm.
smiled. I didn't have a little attitude like, no. I walked up, introduced myself, nice to meet you, um, and learned. I also learn how to be appropriate for that environment. You
Mm.
know, you can be yourself, but you can be appropriate for the environment that you're. You're not going to walk into a red, red red carpet event and be like, "Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm
Yeah.
here." No, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you just ruined it. Well, that's just
Right.
me. Well, that's just you, but you need to like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like you need to be appropriate for the settings. So
Yeah. Read the tone of the room.
exactly, you can't just say, "Well, they just got to accept me for a while." Well, they will, but they got to get to know you first, and they don't know you yet, and you just walked in
Right.
like that. So for me, I would say like those are big, and in the renewable industry, or renewable energy industry, and sustainability. I don't think I even mentioned what I do yet, but do you mind if I just
We're
explain
gonna
that
get
real
there.
quick?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll get
go ahead,
there.
get it
Okay,
in, get it. Like, no, no, jump into it, jump into it.
okay,
We
okay,
here now. We here now.
okay. So what I do, I designed a generator that has no emissions. Um, it it uses any fuel, so anything from hydrogen to wood waste materials. It can use your normal fuels like your liquid fuels that you use in your vehicle. Um, there's literally hundreds of them that we've used tested in
Mhm.
this unit.
Yeah.
So I designed a generator that um, the smallest one that we have is five five kilowatts, and the largest one that we have is 5 megawatts. So like the smaller one would be like a small Honda generator, and the largest one would be a generator that can power 5,000 homes. So so I designed the generator. It runs off of a steam engine. I did not make or design this engine. We have a partnership with the manufacturer of this engine, but we install the engine in my system, and we have multiple uses and applications. I can talk about that a little bit later. But that industry is obviously not the same as the one I was in before. I was working in aviation, got into rocket industry, got into renewable. And some people say, well, how did you make the transition? And really makes the point of what I've been saying about networking. I moved
Mhm.
out there to Los Angeles, and out there, I mean, everybody's into renewables and sustainability, and there's a lot of individuals out there that are um, very interested, passionate about that. So I ran into a lot of them. I started networking, and in the process of networking, I met a lot of individuals in that industry, and I always had an interest there. So I sort of migrated onto that, found a problem, made a solution, started a business. That's what I did. So
Yeah.
I um I would say in this industry especially, you have to have a passion. You might not know everything. Like I'm not your number one expert on renewable energy. I'm still learning all the ins and outs of that. Yet I do have a passion for
Mhm.
sustainability. Um, and even the definition of that, maybe I can explain sometime, but it's for me, it goes into many things. It's a lifestyle.
Mhm.
It goes
Yeah.
into your work, your job, other things that I want to do. But there are industries like aviation and
Mhm.
renewable energy that you really have to have a passion or you have to be an enthusiast in order to really network the way that you need to. If you don't like airplanes, it's going to be hard for you to really mix with and network the way that you need to because the people in aviation, they love their airplane. They know their planes. They're like, oh, that's a G500. You're like, what? What? I never heard of that. So you have to you got to be an enthusiast. You got to know your stuff. You got to learn
Yeah.
your stuff. And the same with renewable energy. Like the individuals in this industry are just wrapped around it. So
Mhm.
um, I really want to see more of us in these industries, especially in renewable and sustainability, because um, um, I think I think the reason why we don't see as much is just because um, depending on how you're raised,
Mhm.
you're more in a survival mode of like
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay alive. Like the environment can do what it does. For me, I just
Mhm.
need to have some food on the table. I'm trying to stay I just want to stay alive. So
Yeah.
when you get in a survival mode, you sort of have your blinders on and you're focused on um, what you have to do to survive. That's just your natural instinct. Like your body does that.
Mhm.
So and your mind does that. So I think we have to get out of that and realize that um, the importance of not only helping the environment, um, and the environment is not only just the warming in the ozone layer. There's more than that.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's it's our lifestyles, the individuals around us, and how we
Mhm.
work together, but and how we make money and all of that. We got to see the importance of that and also see that if we're going to make a difference, like we need to be the ones who are helping make those decisions. So the ones
Mhm.
who move up at a point like where our voices can be heard and we can be the
Yeah.
ones who are helping say, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do this.
Mhm.
Not just the ones working on the floor. And we need to work on the floor, you know what I'm saying? But I think that
Mhm.
we also need to have a say
Yeah.
in some of the lawmaking and decisions that are made around that.
Yeah, I totally agree. When you look at the renewable space energy and the aviation industry, what does the future look like to you? Especially when it, looks at when you look at more of us getting involved into the industry, what does that future look like?
Well, I think, especially the aviation industry right now, there is major oppor- opportunity for employment because they're out of there's not enough mechanics. They said even just mechanics, it, if you want to be a pilot, um, if they went and filled up literally all the schools and maxed them out for the next 5 years, we still have a, a major shortage. Like they're still going to be going on shutting things down because of the shortage. So, and we're
Yeah.
not even anywhere near maxing out capacity of all the schools in the whole United States. But saying if we did, we would still
Mm,
have a shortage.
mm,
So to me, that's a chance, where we can step in and have more of us in an industry that's literally does not have enough. I mean,
mm,
I've I've worked in the industry for a while, and it's um, depending on where you work, like it's rare to see a brother. It's
mhm,
very rare. So and when I do, I hear the stories. They're like, no,
mhm,
like I can't talk to you right now. I'm like, I know, I'll go over here.
mhm,
I know how it is. So we need more of us in that industry
mhm.
for sure. And and like I said, if you do get in that industry, you got to be aware of reputation because you're going to have to go the extra mile and show that you're responsible and you do know and you're going to go above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, do you feel it's the same way for the renewable space energy too? Like, do are we at the point where the future looks like there is a vast, strong need for more of us to get involved in that industry so that we can produce the products and resources and get the insights that we need for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually just starting to work with a company called called Clean Energy Culture. Um,
Uh huh.
you should look it up when you get a
Clean
chance.
energy culture. I
They use a K when they spell it, um,
okay.
and I'm going to be working with them here in the future. We've had a conversation, but they are into um, making this more of a culture um, of of diversity, and
Mm,
and helping individuals have a path, for stepping in into a um, into a place of authority, or like how do you get there? Like what's the pathway to get there? And so they're doing some amazing things,
I love that.
and I just recently started working with them. So
Nice, nice. Keep up the great work. I mean, we need those pathways. We need that clean energy culture because that's pretty much that's dependent on all like the whole human race and
yes,
everything we want to do here so that we all can live a life where we're thriving and not just surviving in the future. So appreciate that. You know, David, we I feel like me and you can probably talk all day, but I'm not at the space where I do the Joe Rogan podcast yet.
right, right.
So let's wrap it up like this. What projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
So we're in the process of making a prototype. The first one, I just raised my first investment. This is new. This last week, and we're going to be raising a larger investment on WeFunder, which
Hmm.
is which is a crowd funding site, and that's going to be starting mid-February. So I'm
Nice,
excited. I have not actually made that announcement. It is my first announcement making it, but we're going to be making this available to anyone that wants to invest as little as $100, and
nice.
you will have equity in the company, which means that um, you'll have a part and receive um, as we expand and grow and become more valuable, like your equity will as well. So you
Yeah.
have a chance to make an investment in a company that I know is going to make a change in the world. And we're going to be doing some amazing things, like I said, working in Africa and all over the world to help with their energy needs and doing it in a responsible and sustainable way. So right now we're making a prototype, and that is supposed to be done um, maybe around April. And then the exciting thing is, this is really exciting, and
That
I I haven't mentioned this to you yet, but we're going to be doing a reveal, because I'm not revealing what the unit's going to look like. So we're going to be doing an event here in Dayton, Ohio, a red um, carpet event. I'm inviting all the entrepreneurs. I'm sorry, all of the investors, friends and family, and I'm also going to invite you as well to come and
nice.
see the reveal. We're going to have music. We're going to have food, and then at the end, I'm going to do a speech, and then we're going to actually reveal it. It's going to be under a sheet. We're going to have it up on stage. We're going to do a reveal. The media is going to be there. Press is going to be there. So I'm really excited about that. And um, like I said, have an eye out for WeFunder mid February. We're doing all the videos and stuff right now. So I'm really excited. We're, we're ready to get the ball rolling and start making these and put them out there.
David, we excited too. I'm gonna make sure I drop this episode around mid-February. It's
Okay.
Black History Month. It's gonna be Black History Month, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all come and represent.
Hey, there's a reason why we're
Help.
launching in February, okay?
You know what I'm saying? And all y'all that was talking about helping out the
Right?
Black community,
Right?
y'all was active during George Floyd's time.
You got that
Here's your
refund.
opportunity. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
We here. As
absolutely.
Martin Luther King said in his last speech before his demise, we coming to get the check. We
Yep,
coming to get our check.
absolutely. Yes.
So, David, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. I can't wait for and don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, if you're driving and so forth, I'm gonna get all the information from David and I'm gonna put it in the show notes so that you can just click on the link and go out there and support, give money, and come out and join us in any way you can. So don't worry, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But David, thank you again for coming and blessing our audience, inspiring us, sharing with us. I can't wait to see you out there in Dayton. Any last words of wisdom for the people before we sign off?
You can find me on my website, and I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So just look up my name on LinkedIn, my website, um, greenzeroenergy.com, and you can see what we're
Mhm.
doing on there.
Nice. There you have it. greenzeroenergy.com, ladies and gentlemen. Come out and represent, and we'll catch you on the next time.